We live in some of the best communities in Illinois. We care about our neighbors. We work hard to preserve our quality of life. But there's something we forget about in Elmhurst. A river runs through it, and it's up to us to protect it. Our storm drains flow to Salt Creek, and that means our harmful waste does too. So try using fewer chemicals on your lawn. Avoid leaking fluids from cars. And grow native flowers and plants to absorb more rainwater. Don't muddy the waters. Do your part to clean up Salt Creek.
Welcome. I'm Georgia Dolan, president of the Elmhurst Garden Club. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch that was so thoughtfully prepared by our hostess committee. And our hospitality committee does such a great job each month. This year, our club is celebrating our 90th anniversary. The 90th committee started planning last year, and among many other things, they divided our history into decades. Each meeting, we have been celebrating a decade of that era, and our club as well, we're celebrating the era and what is going on in our club as well at each of those meetings. Each month has been entertaining and informative part of our history. Also, I'd like to recognize our scholarship committee chaired by Jean Baldakowski. The committee all worked hard to select amazing scholars. They sifted through applications and made the hard decisions as to who should receive these scholarships. You will be meeting each one of our scholars and our committee members as they are introduced today. I'm honored to start the program today that will present a distinguished group of individuals that received scholarships last year from our Mildred Hartney Scholarship Fund. Mildred Hartney is a former Elmhurst Garden Club member who was instrumental in establishing the program over 20 years ago. These funds are generated by our successful annual Garden Walk and Fair. The Garden Walk and Fair features 6 to 8 Elmhurst gardens, and in many years, a public garden is included too, along with an outdoor boutique in Wilder Park. Our garden walk is on the second Sunday in July, and this year it will be July 10th. Since we sincerely appreciate all the community members who contribute as sponsors, advertisers, donors, or volunteers who help to ensure the success of the Garden Walk. We would like to especially thank the Elmhurst Park District for all of its invaluable help and support. Thanks to all of these supporters, our Garden Walk has grown from netting about $5,000 in 1994 to almost $20,000 in 2015. I am pleased to share with you that last year we awarded $10,000 in scholarships in a variety of majors, from horticulture to environmental studies to ecology. As well as scholarships, a portion of our proceeds help support other Elmhurst organizations that meet our club's mission, such as the York High School Garden Club, the Ray Graham Garden, the Cool Cities Coalition, the YMCA, the Library Holiday Decorations, Elmhurst College Arboretum, Elmhurst Park District, and the Herb Garden, and the Garden Clubs of Illinois tree planting program, which helps to replace trees from the recent tornado. To earn these scholarships, the 6 scholars you'll hear from today maintain a minimum 3.0 grade point average in their academic studies. They've submitted 2 letters of recommendation, one of which is from an educator, and have written about their aspirations in their chosen career, among other criteria. Today's program allows for each scholar to talk about their topic of choice as it relates to their field of study. A Garden Club Scholarship Committee member will introduce each scholar to you. We look forward to each individual's presentation. At this time, I would like to introduce Pat O'Dwyer. Pat is currently the co-chair of the 90th Anniversary Committee and vice chair of the Design and Exhibits Committee, and as a member of the Scholarship Committee, Pat will introduce our first scholar presenter. Thank you, and please enjoy today's presentation. Pat.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to tell you about our first scholarship winner, Larissa Root. She's a student at Northern Illinois University. When she graduates in May, she will have earned degrees in both environmental geology and environmental studies with minors in chemistry and biology. Her coursework, research, study abroad, volunteer activities, and clubs are numerous and varied, and paint a picture of a most hardworking and interesting woman who has begun her journey into her chosen field in a comprehensive and admirable way. Larissa's scholarship application and transcript give us a picture of her coursework and studies, her campus activities, part-time job, and her many volunteer projects. She's an honor student. She's been in the NIU honors program for 4 years. Her honors thesis focused on the feasibility of geothermal energy expansion in the United States. She studied the same topic abroad in Iceland at the Reykjavik University School of Energy. She's worked as a summer intern at the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. Her volunteer work includes presenting at a STEM day for kids, participating in habitat restoration projects in Florida, and campus trash cleanup days. For the last 2 years, Larissa has held a part-time job at the NIU library. Her supervisor there describes her competence and the quality of her work, saying she has shown a tremendous amount of responsibility, independence, and good judgment. In his recommendation, one of Larissa's biology professors wrote, outside the classroom, Larissa had participated in several programs that are preparing her for an undoubtedly successful career in science. She participated in Northern's Research Rookies program, one of the premier undergraduate programs at the university, which chooses a small group of gifted students to become involved in lab research early in their academic careers. She was also chosen as a student ambassador at NIU's National Science Foundation-funded Research Experience for Undergraduates program. Larissa says that she studies environmental science because she's interested in the relationship between people and resources in a society and their stewardship of those resources. Her main area of interest is water. And with the current news reports coming from around the globe, as well as from California and our near neighbors in Flint, Michigan, I think we need her. Her presentation today is titled protecting our water resources. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you Larissa Root.
Thank you, Pat, for that introduction. My name is Larissa Root, and I am honored to be an Elmhurst Garden Club Scholar. Today, I'm going to talk to you about protecting our water resources. Here's a brief summary. I'm going to talk about my educational program, the significance it has to protecting water resources, and my goals for future career and education plans. First of all, a quiz for you guys. Who knows where this is? It's in Illinois. It's a clue. Yes, I'm so glad you know where that is, because it's one of the few places where St. Peter's Sandstone Aquifer outcrops, and it's a very important drinking water resource for northern Illinois, other than Lake Michigan. I'm from NIU. I have 2 degrees in environmental geoscience and environmental studies, which is more of the interdisciplinary aspect of environmental science, with minors in chemistry and biology. Some key courses I have taken. Water is a very interdisciplinary subject, so it's important to know about chemistry, physics, the math, soils, everything that goes into it, and even environmental law, policy, and economics. I have had internships with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and this last summer with Ogle County Health Department performing well and septic installation inspections. And I would like to talk to you about unique senior capstone experience I have had at Northern. As you can see here, our main objective was to assess pollution risk at our field site. This involved learning about chemical safety and becoming certified in chemical safety preparedness, or HAZWOPER, collecting, testing, and analyzing water samples, performing land surveying skills, water well installation, soil classification, keeping a field notebook, and using all of this data and analysis to write a final industry standard report called an environmental site assessment, or phase 2. A little quiz for the garden club. I need your help. Who recognizes this?
Cow Parsnip.
Yes. Why would this be a concern while doing field work? It's actually, I found out myself because it got me. When this plant reacts with sunlight and comes in contact with the sun and the skin, it produces a chemical burn. So that's not pleasant. It's very important to know your botany when you're doing field work. The significance to protecting our water resources. Businesses are required to have permits for their actions that will impact the environment. So in order to protect our water resources, we need bright scientists and engineers to evaluate, prevent, and design solutions to water pollution issues, as well as effectively communicating science to a public, which scientists don't always do so clearly. Water quality and quantity are under increasing demand. As the population increases and our water consumption increases, we need clean water for everyone. We are very fortunate in this country to have access to clean water. We have good sanitation practices, the infrastructure, and the regulations to ensure clean water. However, we must not get complacent and take this for granted. As I'm sure you're aware, recently Flint, Michigan mismanaged their water resources. The persons in charge of the water supply failed to take proper precautions and caused real harm to their community. This is negligent. Specifically, corrosive water was run through municipal pipes made out of lead, and the lead leached into the water supply. Lead causes learning disabilities in young children, among other deleterious effects to human health in high dosages. Chicago also has lead pipes. The city is working to convert to safer piping, but in the meantime, if something happened at the water intake of Lake Michigan, a scenario like this isn't out of the question. My future education and career plans that relate to protecting water resources, I see a need that for the infrastructure in this country is long overdue for work. We have the greatest impact on water resources by updating our pipes, such as in Chicago and Flint, Michigan, irrigating our water more wisely, designing more efficient water treatment plants and sewer systems, well installation, and designing landfills whose liners are less likely to leak contaminants. I see a need in the job market for civil engineers to mitigate water issues through design. That's why I have elected to continue my education with an engineering degree rather than a master's in hydrogeology. The environmental permitting process often needs a professional engineer to sign the plan to ensure the design complies with regulation. I have also considering joining the Peace Corps or Engineers Without Borders to help bring clean water to other countries. And I also would like to mention, if you've ever seen the movie Erin Brockovich, that's sort of what environmental scientists do. They do background work on the site, collecting all the history, they collect evidence, and they see if there's any crime, aka pollution, that has happened and who might be responsible. We have to be vigilant in order to protect our water resources and ensure we have safe water for our communities. Thank you, Elmhurst Garden Club. I have been honored to be a scholar. I'm very excited to be around others who are passionate about natural resources, as I am. You're being excellent stewards and investing in your community, setting a precedent for other garden clubs and communities. And we do have the ability to be prosperous as a city and as a nation while protecting our water resources. We must. Millennials like me work very hard, which with college costs these days, because we believe, and we are very optimistic, we can change our cities to become more sustainable. So thank you again for your support.
Thank you, Larissa. I'm Norma Farrell, and I'm a member of the Elmhurst Garden Club Scholarship Committee, and it is my privilege and honor to introduce to you a 2-year scholarship recipient, Wes Krug. Wes Krug is a graduate, will be graduating this spring with 2 majors and 1 minor from the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. And this past year, he used some of his scholarship funds to partially fund his summer internship at Longwood Gardens in the Philadelphia area. And he's going to be sharing with you that experience. Welcome, Wes.
As aforementioned, I'm Wes Krug, and I go to the University of Wisconsin at Platteville. I'm a double major in crop and soil science and environmental horticulture with a comprehensive emphasis in crop and soil science. I am hopefully graduating, well, I am graduating this May, 2016, and with high honors. My freshman year, I was an intern at Advanced Crop Care, being a crop scout. It provided me necessary agronomy experience, and I learned a lot about what I do and don't like about different parts of my major, I guess. Last year, as being a 2-year scholar, the Garden Club also helped me do this and be part of the Office of Sustainability and working with being an undergrad and working with the Organic Sunflower Project, and where we took sunflower seeds and pressed them for their oil and converted this into a production kind of facility so that people could have a natural organic use for cooking oil. But this summer, what we're all here for, I got to go to Pennsylvania, to Longwood Gardens. And this is one of the premier gardens in the world. Over 1.2 million visitors every year. And I was one of 3 selected rotational interns, and that was out of 77 applicants to be part of going here. And I got to visit and work at different parts of the gardens throughout my time here. And I'll explain to you what they are. First was the conservatory. And there's 4 acres under glass. It's absolutely magnificent. Everything you can imagine, all different biomes, different plants. And I got to work with a man who literally knew every single plant in there by scientific name, knew everything about where they came from, what growing requirements they had. So that was the cool thing about Longwood. It wasn't just being able to work there, it was the educational aspect of Longwood in their forefront they're at the forefront of education. They're doing a production kind of all sorts of different gardeners. They have their own, they have their own like small community college style certificate that you can get called a professional gardener. That's a PG for short. And it's that kind of education that they brought to everyone. It was 40 other interns there, and it was absolutely a magnificent experience. But these are some of the projects I got to do. I put these hibiscus out in front. I got to, all that lower ground cover you see there, all those begonias, those were taken out and changed kind of by me. And they also had things there like you see what I'm pointing to. That was a New Zealand Christmas tree, and it's called a standard, where they basically take ropes and netting and combine it and hold it all together. So you kind of get that lollipop look. It looks like something out of Dr. Seuss. It's unbelievable. And it's just stuff like that. That's what Longwood was. It was the experience. It was to go above and beyond what everyone else did. And this is just one of the views of the main hall. Cannas everywhere. Longwood actually had their own cultivar and variety of cannas that was specific to Longwood, invented there. And I also got to work in an open area in the conservatory. I know that's kind of contradiction, but they had some water gardening there, and everyone's favorite, obviously the Victoria water lilies. They're huge. And I learned a little bit something about like Victoria amazonica. This is the one with the high raised edges. And the reason these edges are raised is because when the wind comes, they actually fold down onto the plant, creating pressure so they don't flip over. Stuff like that. And this is it at night. And there was also some, very physical labor that was done. Many different trees and whatnot, more permanent parts of the display had to be taken out occasionally, every maybe say 3 years. And that was a big thing at Longwood. Nothing stays the same. You might come in 2 weeks, look at the same spot, ground covers have changed. Everything, or maybe something around you's changed. The baskets are different. So when you would come in, and then seasons, they'd have total display changes altogether. So you always came in seeing something different. Took a lot of manpower, over 200 full-time workers, 800 volunteers, and all the interns. It's a full working city. Like, it's unbelievable. So yeah, this is one of the trees I had to remove. It was 90 degrees that day. If you couldn't tell, I am covered. Had to get in there early, in the hottest greenhouse we had. Of course. And they had all sorts of different, plants that you would never see anywhere, like what's on the right there. I also had to get rid of these, and I cannot, for the life of me, remember what they were. I can remember where they're from, though. They're Canary Islands, and they're located on top of this mountain that they had there. And what I do remember the most is how when you were taking them out, they would make you itch like crazy. But it was inside displays like that. I was working, that Syad behind there is priceless. And I was reminded that several times. So you're trying to do all this stuff without wrecking something. Another view of the halls. Orchids, we had a whole house of orchids. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And obviously we had a hall of bonsai trees, some that were dated back and started growing back in 1909.
Oh, jeez.
And then from conservatory, which I absolutely loved, I went to production, which a part of an internship is kind of finding out what you do and don't like. And I would say production is not for me, but I learned some awesome things there about how they grow their plants. And they have to be very full, lush, and they had to do things that normal production people could not do. So almost everything that you see in Longwood is grown there. So, and that was kind of what I was tasked to do. Every plant you see on the left of me, that's a different cultivar of chrysanthemum. I had to trim all these back, and they make this giant mum festival. And we'll take each one of these, a section of it, a flower, and we will graft it onto a large ball. So you'll see basically this giant ball of chrysanthemums where every single one is a different flower to it, and it's a different cultivar. You have no idea. Because you have to trim these things every 2 weeks. It's insane. I didn't understand. I'm like, it's good, but is it this good? I didn't get to see it later, so I was like, ugh. But anyway, the potting shed, obviously you're always moving things in and out as it's getting bigger. Spent a lot of time there. And just some more of the production. And then I got to go to natural lands, which I found is kind of, I'm thinking it's my calling. It involves everything that I've ever studied. It's a little bit of horticulture, obviously making things grow. It deals with the soil and crop and soil science, soil, conservation, everything. And a little bit of reclamation, which I've also kind of dabbled in. This is kind of what I was in charge of, 86 acres of meadow and whatnot. It was the old farm for the DuPonts who owned Longwood Gardens before. That was converted into this nature area. And it dealt with everything. I had a young man who was with me. He was only he was like 26, so I didn't really feel like he was my boss, but he really was. He was the smartest person I've almost ever met. You could tell you anything from the moths out there to the trees, anything about anything. And we actually went one day, I thought this was the coolest story I had in natural lands, where we had to go out into a meadow nearby, because you want to collect things that are closest, because they have the best probability of surviving, just because they're used to the environmental conditions. And we collected 20 seeds of this native thistle. And I know thistle, yeah. I know to you gardeners, that's a swear word. But no, it's actually, they're quite different than the Canadian ones that you envision. Anything that should be natural and native should kind of blend into the landscape. It doesn't overcompete with anything. So, and we collected this and had to germinate it and make more seeds of it since it was so rare. And the reason we were doing this is because we're trying to attract butterflies here. And in a native landscape, there isn't many things that butterflies can eat or have nectar from in August. Thistles are actually one of the very few things that are blooming in August. So it was used for that. And there's also cool things like native orchids that I didn't even know existed. But apparently you don't usually see them because to deer they're like candy. So they're usually gone by the time they're up. But this is one of the pictures I took in my free time. I thought it was gorgeous. And this is just some of the outdoor landscaping that I worked in for a week before I left. It's just gorgeous. And lastly, we ran a small program at the end that was a special program. It was called Nightscape, and what we were doing there. And all those outdoor landscaping plants had to be kind of kept the same because these projections, these holograms, and lights and sounds had all been previously done towards, the artist had incorporated what landscape was there. So we had to come up with something that will look good in July, still look good in September, October, which is unusual at Longwood because I said everything changes. So this is just kind of what it would start to look like. They put some light shows up on some of the fountains. This is the Italian water garden, kind of my favorite. But that's what it kind of looks like. They're throwing all these different, lights and whatnot. Anyway, here's a terrible joke. There you go. And also, I'm looking for employment, so if you know anybody who's throwing a pitch here in soil science, anything related in that, please send it my way, but the goals are to hopefully be part of the National Conservation Service. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for allowing me to do what I do.
Longwood Gardens is on my bucket list. Pictures don't do it. I have to go there, so I'm telling my family that. What a privilege it is to be on this committee. I've been in Garden Club for like 20 years, done different things, and I get to read about what these young people are doing. I'm a retired teacher, and I always told my students, please go out there and make the world a better place. They're doing it. They're doing it. It makes me so excited. Our next scholar recipient is Lana Sweet. And we go back quite a ways. Lana comes to us from the business world. We're all on a journey. And sometimes when you get to be old like me, you say, I wish I'd done that. Well, she is doing that. She was in the business world, and now she's, when I first met her, Gardening was her passion. She even was one of the first members in our garden club that had an evening garden club because she worked during the day. See, I was a teacher and I waited till I retired and I got into garden club. So there was the evening growers. And this group introduced us to Ball Seed. And many a time, Ball Seed would come and talk to us and tell us their new production. It was really very exciting and it opened lots of doors. Well, that was Lana's passion. Well, she's on a journey. And now she has left the business world and she's pursuing her passion of horticulture. And she doesn't know quite where it's going to take her, whether, just like Wes, he's, by being at Longwood, he's discovered what's really interested in him. But now she's going to come back with the business, that business part of it, and she's going to apply it to horticulture. And believe me, she will make a difference in our world. So Lana, please, thank you.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Appreciate that. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to say thank you very much for inviting me here today. It is so special to be able to be here and thank you all in person for the scholarship and being selected for the scholarship, not only by the scholarship committee, but also, to meet all of you as hard workers, having a past here in the Garden Club. I know the dedication and the hard work that you all put into to be able to offer the scholarships to the recipients, and I just want to say thank you very much for that. Everyone here has a love of plants. It's a garden club, right? So what I want to do is take an opportunity to introduce myself to you through some of the plants that are special to me. The first one, the Katsura tree. I love this. I love the heart-shaped leaves on it. I like the pyramidal structure. I like the low branches on the plant. And most of all, I absolutely love it in the fall because it has the most intoxicating scent from the leaves themselves. Bouteloua gracilis. It's a great plant. It's got chartreuse flowers, although they don't really look like they're chartreuse colored in this picture. It's a really kind of unique plant. It's kind of interesting. It is a grass. But the reason I love it so much is because I think it's fun to play with little kids. I call it mustache grass because when you pick it off, the little flower heads go slanted across the lip and it's fun to carry around. It's just a fun plant. And if nothing else, it's really fun to say Bouteloua. Echinacea simulata. It's an echinacea, but it's a really unique echinacea, and it's beautiful. Allium. It's my favorite bulb. Doesn't have to be summer beauty. It could be any allium. I just think that the structure of them is so unique and interesting. They can add so much to a garden. And in this bed of sporobolus, just the sporobolus and the allium, I just think it's got an interesting look. It's a great combination. Amsonia is also one of my favorite plants. There's nothing better than on a summer day with a light breeze to sit in the yard and watch the Amsonia just kind of twirl around in circles. It's just mesmerizing. At least to me, it's mesmerizing. I love plants. I love the beauty. I love the color. I love the texture. I love their interest. And that love has led me to the field of horticulture. My journey in horticulture really evolved from three facets, not only the love of plants, but learning, volunteering, and sharing. I was a flower child. At the age of 2, I was well known for going out into the garden and picking the flowers, 4-o'clocks, snapdragons, zinnias, you named it. I was always out there going to take a smell, and the next thing you know, the plant was, pretty much ripped apart because I wanted the flowers and I wanted to share them with other people. That never really changed. Not only did I like that, I also liked the enjoyment of learning about the plants. When I got a little bit older, I got my own little vegetable garden in the yard. I would grow carrots, I would grow radishes, and that evolved into other plants, other flowers, even to the point of growing a cherry tree from seed just to see what it would do. So it was always interesting to me. I also, a lot of people would ask me the question of, do you like to garden? And I never took offense to it, but I always thought it was kind of an interesting question because, yeah, I like to garden, but what I really like to do was tinker with the plants. I like to go out find a plant that I just thought was interesting, put it in the ground, see what it would do. Challenge the plant, you know, was it the right soil? Was it the right sunlight? Was it whatever? And I'm still that same way today. I love a beautiful garden, don't get me wrong, but on the other side of the fence, it was more about what is this plant doing and how can I help it, or how can it help me? From that standpoint, I thought about plants, though, and thought maybe it was time to get more serious about education and really learning some real stuff. I'd always enjoyed learning about plants. From Chicago Botanic Garden had classes, Morton Arboretum had classes, garden centers would have classes. It was always interesting. I had taken a class at College of DuPage, but then I thought, well, let's get serious about it. I had an opportunity to. So I did. I enrolled in College of DuPage. There's many classes out there. I learned all kinds of things that I didn't expect to learn. Not that I was a know-it-all by any means, but just things would surprise you, things that you never think about, things that you take for granted all the time. Soils is a great example. In the soils class, we talked about soil profiles, we talked about organic matter, texture of the soil, structure of the soil, minerals, fertilizer, and the one that really surprised me was artificial soils. Learning about artificial soils kind of sparked my interest in growing in a greenhouse. Never really thought about that before. They're great places, they're interesting places, but never thought about, wow, you could actually work in a greenhouse. The other thing was I always had an interest in sustainable practices, especially now in this day and age when we talk about water shortages and soil shortages and where are we going to get our food from as, you know, populations continue to grow. So I started taking classes around the Sustainable Landscape Certificate there. Loved them. Learned a lot about what we would call prairie plants or native plants and how great they are for our gardens. Learned about kind of protecting the environment from that standpoint, being smarter about things around chemicals and water, and also about attracting wildlife and the host plants that they're attracted to. Taxonomy was another thing. You know, learning about identification of plants and classifying them within the families. Very interesting. Always a challenge, though, when we'd get sent out to pick the weeds out behind the greenhouse in the construction site and then pull out our Zwink books, the plants of the Chicago region, and try and go through the keys and identify what the plant was. Because there's times when you think, oh, I know that weed. Guess what? You don't know that weed. Because, of course, we're calling it, you know, those names that we grew up with that are common names that don't necessarily exist with everything. We also, in my College of DuPage experience, have planted hundreds of plants. Not only in flats, but when we get liners in, transplanting those into other things, hundreds and hundreds. Very fun, though. Also, I had an opportunity to mother a few plants, literally taking them from seed all the way through to getting ready to sell them at the plant sale. So it was a good experience. I think the biggest lesson I learned out there, though, and the most interesting thing that I will take with me for forever was from Roy Diblick in one of my classes in the Perennial Plant Communities class, and he stated at that point in time that, fortunately, at least I think, there isn't a plant that he hasn't killed at least once. So that always made me feel so much better to think that all those plants in my past that I tried and experimented with that died. So it's nice to know that even the professionals out there, you know, they've lived it and done it, and that it's a good thing because you learn from that. Fortunately, just don't kill like the only species there happens to be of that particular plant. At school, there was a lot of hands-on experience as well. Which was kind of nice. We built in a green roof class, that I had. We actually built a small shed and put a green roof on it. Not very big, admittedly, but just to understand how they all get put together, all the components that are in there. You can talk about it from now till the end of time, and you can go visit greenhouses or green roofs, but until you actually see it and get the hands-on experience, you just don't have that full appreciation, I don't think. We also did tons of garden tours, lovely garden tours. People were so kind about opening up their homes to teachers and, 20, 25 students parading through their yard for 4 or 5 hours at a time. But it was a great experience to be able to learn from all that. Public gardens, private gardens, greenhouses, we always studied the plants, the designs, the conditions, the techniques. Sometimes we climbed through plants. I will not show a picture of that because I don't want to get arrested, but there were times when we were climbing over and through things to take a look at them and see what all that they had to offer. There were times when we were looking for pests and diseases and trying to figure things out. This is a great example. You see this out in nature, and the first thing you think is, oh my gosh, it's got scale. This doesn't have scale. This is actually the way that the needles on this pine happen to grow. That's what they look like. But until I had the experience of being able to see a plant that had scale on it and a plant that didn't have scale on it and be able to do the comparison, I could never assist any of you in trying to identify what was wrong with that particular plant. This is another example. Looks like something that actually would be on a bush or a tree right now, but they're not. These are actually pests and diseases. These are galls. We have the hawthorn gall and the cedar rust gall, both of those. Again, this was from Morton Arboretum recently, so it was nice to see it someplace else, not necessarily in my own yard, but again, a learning experience, because when we saw them on the tree, everybody was like, oh no, that's what they're supposed to be, and that's not what they're supposed to be. They're not supposed to be there. The ongoing question, well, this is another example as well, too. This is Zimmerman pine moth that actually has destroyed this Mugo pine. So not a pretty picture by any means. The question really, the underlying question for all of us that day was, why hasn't it been torn down yet? Because it's just spreading the disease. Hopefully it will be soon from that standpoint. Throughout all of this, my education experience, and when I told people that I was trying to do something different, the ongoing question that I kept getting from everybody was, well, what are you going to do? You know, it's like, you know, you're going to school, you're trying something different, you know, this is a big step for you. And I said, yeah, it is. And I know I didn't want to go back to where I came from. I wanted to go forward. But even with all the education, I kept thinking I'd get the right answer that would just jump out at me. Sustainable stuff, I thought, perfect fit. That's exactly what I want to do. And then I'd get involved in a greenhouse class, and I'd think, oh, perfect fit. That's what I want to do. And I came to the realization that what I really needed to do was to be able to get experience. And internships are a great thing, but internships are pretty long term. And I wanted to have multiple experiences so I could really kind of make the right decision, something that I really felt a lot of passion for and not just kind of fell into. So what I decided to do from that standpoint was, because I already knew that I loved the plants, as I wanted to try and apply that love. So I started in volunteering. One of the first things I did was at College of DuPage. I would stay late after class and say, what do you got for me to do? You got anything in here? Because there's always stuff to do in the greenhouse. And we got involved with, you know, pinching plants, planting plants, cleaning up the greenhouse, cleaning plants. There are seasonal crops that we do in the plants, not only as classes, but just the greenhouse itself. We get involved from class standpoint, but you know, classes are only once a week, so you're not there every single day, and you really need to work in the greenhouse every single day. But we do bedding plants, dark garden mums, poinsettias, cyclamen, lilies, and house plants, in addition to other stuff that just happens to come up, cold crops and everything else. So I was there doing all of that kind of stuff. It's a 12,000 square foot greenhouse, so there's a lot of space and a lot of room. There's always educational things going on too. We bring a lot of school children in to teach them about stuff in the greenhouse, and they're always looking for extra hands to help with that kind of thing. So that was some of what I did. I also, through my taxonomy class, got introduced to the Russell Kirk Prairie out at College of DuPage, and got in touch with the biology professors there and said, I'm interested. They said, we do a lot of stuff with our classes, but we're always looking for extra hands. So I've been out there, I've collected seed, we've cleaned seed, we've planted seed, we've taken care of invasives, but it was kind of interesting to be in a school environment versus a non-school environment from that standpoint. I was interested in natives and joined out at Blackwell Forest Preserve, joined up with the native plant nursery out there and did a lot of volunteer work out there. Again, it was a lot of the same similar type of stuff of collecting seed, planting seed, weeding. But now I'm in a forest preserve, which is a completely different kind of an environment, just to learn about it, to see what it's like. When I was in class one day last spring, the teacher announced that representatives from Bensonville Park District contacted them. They had received some grant money, and they were looking to do some ecological restoration using their grant money. And they were looking for volunteers to come out. And I was like, Bensonville, that's just right up the street, you know. So I went to the first session, and I loved it. I had a lot of fun. I'd done stuff similar to this before, which is cleaning out buckthorn and mustard weed and things like that. But they have some really interesting properties up in Bensonville, some really unique things, and it was fun to see that side of it. But I fell in love with a place called Brighter Palm Park. A lot of you probably are aware of it. It's up on Church Street. It used to be a greenhouse. Yeah. Not that long ago. So they've gotten rid of the greenhouse, and they put in Jack Pizzo and Associates actually put in this kind of a restored prairie look And I thought it was just interesting, and it was really beautiful, and it's very unique. It's not like your normal park, your normal playground, but they have a nice walking path throughout there and some lovely benches. And there's nothing better than to sit down on one of those benches and watch Mother Nature take its course. You know, all the interesting insects and bugs and birds, and there's fox that live in there. It's not a very big space at all, but it's really kind of fun. But I fell in love with this, and because of my love for it, I was up there all the time just volunteering on my own, not normally on work days, and they were kind enough to honor me with the award of becoming their first steward. So I became a steward of this property. Thank you. The good news is I'm the steward. The bad news is now I'm responsible for work days and have to get people together to get out there and do it. But one of the things that's exciting is working with the Park District and the employees there, and they have opened their arms to say, what all do you want to do? And one of the things I'd really like to do is try and start some educational programs. A lot of people will look at the space because you can see what it looks like in wintertime, and people go, oh, God, that's terrible. That's not pretty. But I see the beauty in it. But I'd like to find a way to show other people what that beauty really happens to be as well. It's lovely in the spring and the summer. But I think if you can educate people and kind of say, hey, look at this plant, look at how cool it is and what it can do, maybe, or get the little kids involved, because, little kids will always find the soft spot to their parents. The next thing you know, their parents are out there engaged in it as well. So that's what the hope and plan is. The one other place that I went to was Garfield Park Conservatory. I actually went there to try and get involved in greenhouse work doing propagation, and the propagation team was full at the time, and I'm still not quite sure how this happened, but I'm incredibly blessed to have had it happen. They said, you know what, we're normally really full with our beekeeping program, but we have a spot for you. So I joined the beekeeping team. I knew nothing about beekeeping. I was completely a novice, but they have 8 teams all total. And each team is responsible for 2 hives. And we did everything. Everything from, releasing bees in the spring, through honey extraction, through taking care of the hives all the way to wintertime and beyond. Did mite checks and everything else. And like I said, I knew nothing. And some of the people that I worked with had been beekeeping for years. Some of the people were novices just like I was. We had a wonderful beekeeper, Marchan, he's just amazing. He's only been doing it for 6 years, but he just kind of does it as a hobby on the side. But it was the most educational experience I've ever had. It was all about learning. But we sat together as a group, and it was always, okay, let's talk about this. What's your opinion? What do you think we want to do? How should we handle it? Because just like in gardening, there's no set way to do something. So, but you want to do everything you can for the benefit of the bees, so that's what we did. The other thing I really enjoyed here with the beekeeping is the bee education program. There was nothing more exciting than seriously standing there and having the general public come over to take a look, wanting to get just a taste of honey or see what the bees were doing and see something like a baby bee being born. It was the most incredible experience, and I wish so badly still that I had videotaped it, but I did not. But watching the bees kind of taking their drunken first flight, and just everything was really fun. But the questions that you got asked and the awe that you'd see in people's faces, and just to be able to have a conversation about it and see what the questions were that they asked, things that I thought about maybe, but it kind of helped solidify everything for me. And really what it did solidify was I made a decision that I wanted to not only take my love of plants, but kind of the education piece of it at the same time. I had a teacher who was kind enough to say to me not too long ago, I think you'd really be good at that to trying to, you've got a soft spot sometimes for talking through things with certain, with people to help them understand something, but you're also open to listening to what they have to say. So from that standpoint, I have tried to make a decision to get more into public gardening. I don't know where it's going to be. I put out a lot of applications out there, so we've got my fingers crossed to see where I land, but I'd like to get into some aspect of public gardening where you can not only share your love of working with plants, but being able to enrich someone's life, bringing them joy, happiness, inspiration through the plants that you're there to look at and share with them. So that's really what the hope is. Maybe I'll be working someplace like this someday. I don't know. We'll see. But my journey in horticulture will really never be over. I do know that. And I have more plants to really learn to love and a number still to kill that I haven't done that with yet. But as you all know, as every garden evolves, every gardener should really try and evolve as well. And that's the one thing that I really want to do. So from that standpoint, I want to say thank you to the Elmhurst Garden Club. I really appreciate the opportunity that you've given me here today, as well as your support both of my education and of my journey. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Lana. That was inspirational. It's my pleasure today to introduce Subir Thind, scholarship winner who is completing her junior year at Loyola University in Chicago. Subir is in a pressure cooker, and the pressure cooker that she is in is pre-medical education. Her goal in life is to become a physician, specifically a pediatrician. And her parents have helped her work toward that goal, first by immigrating to the United States from the Punjab in India. If any of you know India, the Punjab is the wheat area, or the breadbasket of India, where rice is grown, wheat, sugarcane, barley, that kind of thing. But so that they have everything covered, they also have steel mills. So you have heavy agricultural and heavy industry represented there. It's also the center of the Sikh religion. And that particular religion has as a major tradition the preservation of Mother Earth. And just coincidentally, a week from today, March 14th, is Environment Day of the Sikh religion, and it's a holiday that's promoted in the Punjab by initiation of various ecological environmental projects, some of which last for a period of years. So when I thought of Subir's history, I thought of the similarities actually in terms of agriculture and industry, in terms of where she came from and where her parents came to, with one major difference: Lake Michigan. And because of where she goes to school, she's literally close to the lake, but also understands the lake intimately in terms of its usage by humans and its water quality. In the course of her time at Loyola, she's been involved in 3 major projects studying water, and today she's going to discuss one of them with us. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to be here today. First, I want to start off by saying thank you to all of you for choosing me as one of the scholarship recipients, because I think it's hard to give money to someone to find the one that's worth it. So thank you so much for having me here. As Caroline said, I was involved in 3 different projects, and I wanted to speak for one of them, but I wanted to give you guys a little background about what I do and where I'm from. As she said, that I'm from India, so a lot about agriculture. I've always grown in agriculture, being a farmer. My parents are both farmers, so I've always been in the green thumb of the land. But coming to America, I realized I was back and forth from India to America, back and forth, learning all the different agricultures. But what really hit me was when I went to college. I went to college and I was by the lake where there was a lot of pollution. So I wanted to deviate from a lot of the botanical aspects of today's presentations to something a little bit more on the organism side for Lake Michigan. So my project is about the effects of climate on isopod mortality, with a little bit of invasive species mixed into the project. So our study focuses on how temperature affects the mortality of isopods, and we also added a focus of invasive species, because a lot of Lake Michigan's water has pollutants, has invasive species, but a lot of us can't figure out what affects what. As a freshman, we first looked at Lake Michigan's water to check in what organisms were there, what type of invasive species were there, what were we causing to the water that we drank. And then we were on hold for a couple of years. So this project was conducted in January, so it's not a very long-term project. It was a very short-term project because of the time constraint. So I just want to get right to it. Our hypothesis was, as the temperature that we increased of the water, that there would be a higher mortality rate for the isopods. And the issues that we had with our project was we added an invasive species, but we didn't know if that affected at all, because our time constraint was so low that we had literally 3 weeks to put in everything. So that's why I don't have many pictures. I just had to get right to work and find results. Also that we also had a big problem was because it was winter, first we couldn't find the water resources for the Lake Michigan because the lake's frozen. And then we had to find purple loosestrife, which was very hard because we needed certain amounts of purple loosestrife. Later on, I will tell you exactly how much weight we had in each of our aquatic lab tubs, but the aquatics lab was literally 20 degrees in Fahrenheit, and we did not know how we were supposed to keep the temperature at a constant rate, as well as we had to sometimes sleep over at the aquatics lab just because of our time constraint and getting things together in terms of temperature. And then our teacher asked, why? Why are we choosing isopods? A lot of our, there were 10 groups in this project. Everyone had their own project. I actually created this project for our group, and they used crayfish. Now, I chose isopods because for most of it, you guys could see at the map, on the northwest end, or northeast end of the United States, it's all full of isopods. And if we're looking at Lake Michigan, so why not isopods? It's our home state. As well as they're very easy to find. In terms of numbers, crayfish, you could only use 1 or 2. In our project, we used 10 in each tub, and we thought isopods would be great because they provide a nutrient cycling assistance. They eat like dried out wood, all different types of pollutants that we may have thrown into Lake Michigan, as well as they're food for the fish. So. I wanted to start off by explaining to you how we did our project because this is a little bit of difficulty for some people to understand. We had 6 artificial streams that was in our aquatics lab. We had a control temperature which was about I think I would say 20 degrees Celsius, 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. Then our moderate temperatures was 23 to 26, and our highest temperature was up to 30. We added 30 liters of water to each tub that we had. And we added 60 grams of purple loosestrife. As one of our recipients was saying, the production aspect was pretty hard because purple loosestrife was so hard for us to find in the first place that even cutting it into different, we had to like scrub it off, and no one was ready to do that, so I had to do that. But we had to scrub it off, and it would hurt your hand because they were really stiff and prickly. But we did it, so I'm happy we did. And we had 10 isopods in each. I wasn't the one to gather the isopods because I was too scared to touch them. So one of my teammates, because I was 3 of us, my teammates were Ali and Emma. Emma was the one who was all in the organism aspect. She wanted to get her hands dirty with the isopods. Me, on the other hand, not so much. And from our results, we noticed that as we increased the temperature, isopod mortality went higher. And we looked at our control. There was 100% survival. So we had 10 isopods in each. We had 2 control lab tubs, and 10 of 10 survived in each. And then for the medium one, we had 6 to 8. One of them had 6, one of them had 8, since there was 2 tubs of each. And our high only had 2 to 3. So like that's our graph, just basically how much of each. Then we plotted a box plot to see, like, is there an overlap between the temperatures or not? And we didn't see an overlap. So we concluded that the highest temperatures have the highest mortality. But our biggest problem where we got criticized was, why did we use an invasive species? Well, we were trying to make it more of a natural habitat for the isopods to survive in, but now we don't know if it was the effects of the invasive species, or if it was the effects of the temperature. But we do know that our hypothesis was right according to what we analyzed. So right now we're on hold once again because we don't have enough funding to understand if the isopods were related to climate change or if they were affected by invasive species. So this summer we're planning on trying to get funding and get back on track with our research because we started off as our research as seeing if Lake Michigan was really polluted, and which it was. We found so many organisms that were dying in the Lake Michigan just because of pollution that we have put in. I mean, being right there by the lake, it's pretty sad to see someone dumping Coke into the lake or someone just being there and polluting it. So that was my main focus coming to Loyola, and now getting here, I was very confused because there was not enough organisms from where the water we collected. So we had to go deep inside the water to see what organisms survived and which ones didn't, and if temperature had any aspect because of global warming. So ending with that, I just wanted to say thank you. And if you guys have any more questions, let me know.
Thank you, Suber. My name is Penny O'Neill, and in addition to being on the scholarship committee, I wear a few other hats, which I won't bore you with. But one of them is co-chair with Pat O'Dwyer on the 90th committee. And I'm only bringing this up because Ball Seed is coming back in April. It's open to the public, and it will be in conjunction with the Elmhurst Public Library and the Elmhurst Garden Club at the library. So hopefully you will all be able to join us there. What began as a hobby to feed her growing young family eventually grew into a career path for Charmaine Cunningham. Charmaine returned to school as her children grew older in order to pursue certification in greenhouse management. She has enthusiastically said that she can't stop growing. Along with her evergreen thumb, she has an inherent interest in teaching children, both her own and others, bringing them to love the soil and nature. Charmaine proclaims that children should know where their food comes from and how to grow it. Pretty good, huh? It is no small wonder that her own 4 children have been very supportive and helpful in her educational goals. Charmaine is a rosarian and an avid seed collector, traits she inherited from her grandfather. Grandpa always gave her a bloom as she left his house whenever she visited him. Heirloom seeds are of special interest to her. A creative thinker, Charmaine enjoys working with others and has enjoyed her experience and studies both at the College of DuPage, at local nurseries such as Random Acres and Platt Hill Nursery, and as a volunteer working with students at the Hoover Math and Science Academy in Schaumburg. Not shy about getting her hands dirty, Charmaine is as resourceful in nurturing seedlings as she is to tending children, and she will surely do well as she continues on in her horticultural pursuits. This is always my favorite time of the Elmhurst Garden Club because it is individuals like all of you and like Charmaine that give me hope in the future. It is my pleasure to introduce one of our scholarship recipients, Charmaine Cunningham.
Thank you, Penny. Hello, my name is Charmaine Cunningham, and I just want to thank the Elmhurst Garden Club for their generous scholarship. When I received the news that I was going to get it, I came at a time I really needed some encouragement. So when people think of college students, I may not exactly fit the mold, but we take on many roles in our lives, and there is no order in which we must play them. The most important role I have is mother. I have nearly 23 years experience raising 2 sons and 2 daughters. I was a single mother of 2 before I met my husband, and I was lucky enough to stay home and raise our growing family. I was able to be hands-on, teacher, maid, cook, you get the picture. So as busy as I was, I chose to teach my children the things I thought were really important. And high on my list was that my kids knew where food came from and how to grow it for themselves. And that's my younger daughter with her cabbage. So, what began as a 10-foot by 10-foot area, a vegetable plot, has grown to over 1,600 square feet. Plus, I have several other beds of herbs, roses, perennials, annuals. So, word gets around, and around our suburban neighborhood. And a few years ago, I was recruited by the art teacher at my children's school to help them with their school's garden club. Well, the school has 2 small greenhouses and a small garden plot. And one greenhouse was available for our club to grow our own, things for our plot. But so we had plenty of space in this greenhouse. And so I'm like, why don't we grow some extra stuff and have the kids sell it? And they can raise money for their garden club. So this will be the 3rd year of us selling our vegetables, herbs, flowers to the neighborhood and to teachers and to the other kids and parents. Our plans have grown and evolved over the first couple of years. We even included the sale of garden art last year created by the students, which was really, really exciting. This sale has been huge and a huge success in sales for the garden club. They raised over $600 last year alone, just in like a 3-day sale period. But the greatest success to me is when it's over, and these kids that grew and cared for the plants, they want to take them home and start their own gardens. And that to me is just brings me so much joy, because what they learn in garden club, nobody can take away from them. That's theirs forever. They can just, they grow with it. They can grow away with me there. So since life happens when you're making other plans, I never really got a chance in my youth to get an education past high school. I was a young mother. But as my children slowly grew into school age, I was ready to return to work and get an education. When my youngest daughter started school, my mother became very sick with cancer, and she fought for 2 hard years before I lost her. And that was probably one of the hardest times in my life. However, she told me whenever I see a butterfly, that would be her visiting me. And lucky for me, I see lots of them because I'm always outside in my garden. So when she passed away, I thought about things a lot, and I'm like, I knew I had to take control of my own life, because if I didn't do the things that I wanted to do, I would regret not doing the things I wanted to do, because you never regret the things you do. You regret the things you don't do. So it was time for me to make some changes, and roles in our lives changed. So from parent and caretaker, I had an employee and student. In 2013, I found a job at Random Makers in Schaumburg, and there was plenty to learn, and it was a small enough place to manage on a very small crew of 3 or 4 people. Unfortunately, my first year there was their last year there. The store closed after 30 years, but I knew where my happy place was now, in the greenhouse, and I was hungry for more. I enrolled in College of DuPage in January of 2014 with an intro to horticulture class and an organic vegetable class just for fun. But again, I craved to learn more and continued 2 classes at a time, reaching my greenhouse management certificate this past December. Soon after I began my education, I talked my way into a job at Platt Hill Nursery in Bloomingdale. I have since been there 2 spring seasons and 2 Christmas seasons. Last summer, I did my internship there at Platt Hill, and I love my coworkers there. They have taught me so much about growing, and they have always been very encouraging to me. For the last 18 months, I've also been working at Brew and Grow in Roselle. This place sells do-it-yourself beer-making supplies and indoor garden supplies. I have been starting my own vegetables and herbs and flowers indoors for the last few years, so I've become a valued employee there. When it comes to helping growers with advice, or even just getting started, wanting to start their garden stuff inside for spring. I really enjoy our crew there. We have a very small group of like 3 employees, but I love talking grow with my regular customers and seeing their excitement. We even have one guy that came in a year ago, and he started growing sprouts just for fun, and now he sells 3 to 5 pounds a week to local chefs. So it's kind of neat to see how people start their own businesses that way. So this year I continue my education at a slower pace with only 1 class, herbaceous perennials. It's going to be a busy year for me. I have 2 children graduating, 1 getting married, another I have to drive to San Jose, California next year for college. So I decided to just take 1 this year, or 1 this semester. But I'm not real certain where my path is taking me on this, journey, but I'm enjoying the walk. I'm not in any rush to be anything, like many young people here are, because I already have so many roles. But at this stage in my life, I know who I am. I'm happy with my convictions, and I'm happiest in my little seasonal greenhouse. Last year, I added a 10-foot by 10-foot greenhouse, which I was able to put up and take down by myself, best part. I grew hundreds of vegetables and herbs and flowers there as a supplement to my experience at Platt Hill Nursery. It was really common last year for the kids to be looking for me and find me out in the greenhouse, because I got Mom's probably in the greenhouse, and then they'd offer to help. But then I knew I really did raise future gardeners when they just wanted, Debbie, can I help, Mom? And I'm like, yes, you can. So it really makes me happy. But in every role in our lives, we have an opportunity to learn from others and to teach them something. Everyone has something to share. The things we learn, nobody can take away from us. So thank you so much for this opportunity to learn.
Thank you, Charmaine. Where'd you go? She's hiding there, she's short. My name is Amy Allen, and I'm going to introduce Amy Keeler, and she's finishing her master's at the University of Miami in Ohio.
Hello. So I'm Amy Keeler, and I'm a graduate student. I'm earning my master's degree in zoology through the Advanced Inquiry Program, which I will refer to as the AIP. And the AIP is a partnership between Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and Brookfield Zoo. And Brookfield Zoo is my master's institution. My program is a little different, and when people ask me to describe it, sometimes I kind of fumble for words. And so I thought my best option was just to take this description from the Miami University website. It's a little long, but I think it'll really give you a good idea of what my program entails. The Advanced Inquiry Program offers a groundbreaking graduate degree co-delivered by some of the nation's premier community and learning institutions. AIP students take courses at an AIP master institution while sharing ideas and developing projects with fellow students and faculty nationwide via web-based learning communities. AIP master's candidates use inquiry not only as a tool for integrated learning, but as a powerful agent for student achievement, public engagement, and ecological stewardship. AIP students join an unprecedented national partnership committed to social and ecological change. The AIP is based on the principle that education should extend beyond the classroom and that students should make a difference, not just after graduation, but now as a basic function of education itself. AIP master's students practice the skills of investigation, critical reflection, leadership, and collaboration required to effectively address the vital issues of our time. The AIP represents my lifelong love of and interest in nature and the environment, and it is also a turn in my career ambition. Every AIP student walks their own path towards their own goals. The result of this journey is the master plan. During my time in the AIP, I have focused my work within the program on conservation and education. I have a particular interest in teaching children and connecting them with the wonders of the natural world. I have defined my master plan as connecting children with education and environmental concerns through creative education. While in the AIP, my education has focused on 3 themes: conservation and local ecosystems, educating children and connecting them to nature, and plastic waste and recycling. Related to conservation and local ecosystems, I have learned about climate change, threats to biodiversity such as invasive species, habitat loss, and pollution, sustainability and limiting our carbon footprint, evolution, conservation technology, Illinois tallgrass prairie ecosystem, Great Lakes ecosystem, community conservation strategies, and carnivore conservation. Pertaining to educating children and connecting them to nature, I have researched nature deficit disorder, ecophobia and ecophilia, using digital photography for nature connection, the use of games for environmental education, improving children's attitudes, and conservation actions towards carnivores and other unpopular animals. Regarding plastic waste and recycling, I have studied factors affecting recycling and littering behavior, the problem of litter and plastic waste in our waterways, the plastic bag dilemma, and how to better promote the use of reusable grocery bags. I have engaged in many community service activities as part of my AIP experience, which has led to personal and professional growth. I have practiced environmental stewardship in my community. I have helped with woodland invasive species removal, litter cleanup, and native wildflower seed collection. And that's a picture of buckthorn a lot of you are familiar with. I have volunteered to educate and connect my community with nature. I am a nature center and special events volunteer with the Forest Preserve District of Cook County. This picture is showing, it's very hard to tell because the picture's cut off, but I'm holding a coyote pelt. I'm running a nature artifacts table at a Forest Preserve District special event. I have used the media to expand nature connection and knowledge. I created the photography-oriented Facebook group called Connect Your Kids with Nature Backyard Bio Blitz. And Shoot Down Nature Deficit Disorder, my article promoting the use of digital photography for schoolyard nature connection, was published in Green Teacher magazine spring of 2015. This picture is actually one of the illustrations that was with the magazine article. I have taken everything I have learned and incorporated it into my work with kids, both in formal and non-formal educational settings. I have worked as a science camp instructor at the Morton Arboretum. At Spring Avenue School, where I work in my regular day-to-day job, I have promoted Earth Day and encouraged recycling. Here's a couple of posters that I created that are now in every classroom in the school. I collected and shared a bug zoo with the students. You can see that I've got a woolly bear caterpillar and a katydid in my hand. I organized 5th grade participation in citizen science. We participated in the Great Backyard Bird Count last year. I also created and acted as an advisor of the Nature News section of Spring Student Newspaper. Here's one of our articles about the forest preserves. I created an educational conservation board game for spring students. I taught creative after-school nature and environmental education classes. This class was on it was pressed flower art. So we used a lot of pressed flowers and leaves. We did a class on nature journaling, learning how to use a nature journal as an art form and also as a way to investigate science. And this was a class we did where I talked about recycling, and we used leftover Christmas paper, repurposed it to make Valentines. The AIP has meshed my passions with new levels of skill, experience, and knowledge that I would not have otherwise had. I am thankful for how hard this program has pushed me to achieve excellence in environmental leadership and action. And I also wanted to thank very much the Garden Club for honoring me with this award. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Jean Waldekuski, and it's my pleasure to be the chairman of the Scholarship Committee. And I want to give I think we should give the scholars another round of applause for their institutional progress. Okay, I think they've assured us that our planet will be well taken care of in the future. And I also want to thank them for making the arrangements to come today, actually. Some of them had to take off of work. Some of them had to convince their professors that indeed they could be absent from class. And some of them, like Wes, traveled a long way with his mother, or Kim over here. Raise your hand if you don't mind. Because he's from the University of Wisconsin in Platteville, which is near the west part of the state. So anyway, I also want to recognize again the scholarship committee members who follow one of these scholars all the way through the year. I know they're dedicated and they want to pick the best candidates possible, and they do devote a number of hours to making all of this work. But most importantly, I want to thank you, because without your work on the garden walk, this would never happen, to be honest about it. So I think you need to give yourselves a round of applause. All right, since 1999, we have awarded nearly $100,000 in scholarships, which I think is an incredible amount of money. And after we give the awards this spring, we will exceed $100,000. So I think that's very impressive. And again, you're the women, you're the people that do all the work to make this possible. We have the wonderful opportunity to give it away, but you're the ones that really create it. So we are very grateful to you. Finally, I want to thank the city of Elmhurst for agreeing to videotape this for the 3rd year, actually. You'll be able to see this program in April on UVerse Channel 99 and on Comcast Channel 6. And so Joe, back there, Piscitelli, which I did in phonetics, has worked with our committee to make all the arrangements. Also, there are members, we have very talented members in our group who have worked behind the scenes. to download PowerPoint, to help us put everything together, Georgia, Marilyn Fink and Pat O'Dwyer, who helped set it all up. So this doesn't happen, and it doesn't go smoothly as it did, actually, without a rehearsal and without everybody working together. So this is definitely, really all of us are responsible for what's happening here. So in the end, I want to thank the scholars, I want to thank the committee members, I want to thank our camera crew, but most importantly, I want to thank you. So this concludes our program. Thank you.
Trees are terrific!
Who perches on the branches, lives among the leaves. Friendly Carly Cardinal, talking about trees.
Sometimes people take for granted about the best things ever planted, but they should be enchanted, should appreciate their trees.
Trees, Carly's Arbor Day Foundation spreads the word across the nation about trees.
Trees are terrific!